The 5 steps outlined in this video include the advice I have given every person who has come to me with this same question.
What should I do if I think I'm being discriminated against at work?
I stayed in my workplace for 19 months of my own fight, so I know firsthand how confusing, frustrating, defeating, and exhausting this experience can be. I also know it can take everything just to show up at work, making the idea of fighting back in order to protect your career feel nearly impossible. But I also know you do need to take steps to protect your career, and that is why I've outlined the 5 steps included here. These steps are things that you can do today, and they are things that you will thank yourself for later. If you are terminated and need to seek recovery, or you just simply decide you want to pursue justice for having been wrong, you will be so glad that you took this action today. Step number 1, communicate your concerns to HR or leadership in writing. I know you have heard over and over again that HR is not your friend, and I am not going to lie to you. You will probably find this to be an understatement. By the time I left my workplace, I wondered how the people in HR at my company slept at night. But even if that ends up being true for you, you still must go to leadership and HR and tell them what's going on. Hopefully, maybe they'll step in and take action to rectify the situation. But even if they don't, you still need to have that conversation. And then, and this is key, you must follow that conversation up in writing, restating your concerns again and the evidence you have that the discrimination is happening. If you decide to take legal action in the future, it will typically be against the company, not the individual. And in order to take action against the company, you must show that the company failed you. If you don't tell the company what is going on, it is not possible that they could have failed you. Step number 2, begin capturing incidents and evidence today. For each, capture the details for any incident where you believe a discriminatory or retaliatory action occurred. Include what happened, the date of the event, and who was there. Discrimination today is more nuanced and typically occurs over a series of small, seemingly unconnected incidents. It will be up to you to capture the evidence and tell the story in a way that demonstrates a pattern of discrimination. No one else is going to do this for you. But if you are terminated and you have no evidence, you will have no case, no matter how certain you are at that point that discrimination was the cause. If you're not sure where to begin or you are feeling overwhelmed by this, Just to Proof can help. We have speech to text built in, which allows you to share your story with us verbally, and we will actually do the transcription for you and then even help you clean up the incident, simplify it for clarity, and then help you determine what evidence to collect and what type of violation occurred. Whatever you do, however you do it, just start today. Don't worry about going backwards to collect evidence from previous incidents if you're not up for it. When you are up for it, it is a good idea to go back, but it is far more important to get started. Step number 3, save your evidence somewhere, anywhere other than a work-owned device. I have had so many victims of discrimination tell me that they have evidence of the discrimination, but it is on a work device that they no longer have access to. Please, please hear me when I say this. If the evidence exists, but you cannot access it, it might as well not exist. You may think you'll have a warning or time to capture this evidence later, but trust me, so did every one of these people until they were abruptly and unexpectedly terminated and immediately lost access to their computer. You may choose to never use the evidence you capture, and that is fine. But make sure that it is your choice to make by saving that evidence on a non-company owned device. Step number 4, check for a mandatory arbitration agreement. These agreements are typically found in your new hire paperwork that you signed upon being hired, but you can also sometimes find them in employee handbooks or updated company policies. Also, if you were terminated and you received a severance, you will also want to check that document to see if there's any mention of arbitration agreements. If you find a mandatory arbitration agreement, this means that you likely have preemptively waived your right to sue your employer in court. Also likely, you preemptively waived your right to participate in class action lawsuits. Your company had you sign this document before you had any idea that discrimination would occur, but that does not change the fact that it will likely impact the options you have legally. The only exemption currently for workplace cases are for cases involving sexual harassment. That means that even if your civil rights were violated as part of the discrimination you experienced, you will still be forced into arbitration versus having a right to fight your employer in court. Most employees, myself included, don't even realize they have an arbitration agreement until it's too late. But it is more likely that you have one than that you do not have one. 56% of non-union employees have one. And if you make less than $13 per hour or your employer is based in California, the odds are even higher, as more than 65% of employees in these groups have a mandatory arbitration agreement. While corporations will claim arbitration benefits both sides, studies have found that arbitration agreements suppress discrimination claims by up to 98%. This doesn't mean that having one is a dead end, but since it does impact what options you'll have, it is extremely important to know either way as you're deciding what steps to take. Step number 5, look up the filing deadlines for filing your discrimination case with the federal or state agencies in charge of civil rights laws. The federal agency is called the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or the EEOC, but there are also state agencies in each state in charge of enforcing civil rights laws. However, these agencies have deadlines that vary, and they are not the same in every state. For the EEOC itself, the deadline to file can be as short as 180 days, so it is extremely important to look those up now so you have an awareness of how much time you will have to file if and when you choose to do so. Within each state, some of them will have similar timelines to the EEOC for filing a discrimination charge, while others will give you significantly more time. For example, in the state of California, where I live, you have up to 3 years to file for discrimination claims. Looking up these deadlines does not mean you have to make a decision on if you want to file, but knowing these deadlines can be the difference between having a chance at recovering damages inflicted on you or being blocked from getting justice entirely. I know this fight is awful, but by putting in the minimal effort outlined in these 5 steps, you'll be giving yourself options for the future that you may not even realize you'll want to have. And I don't want you to realize that you want those options only when it's too late. If you end up not wanting to take action, just simply delete the files that you collected and move on. But at least then, not pursuing it further is your choice and not just another right stolen from you by your employer.